can scar me, but you can't stop me. A cinematic motivational essay by Minh Quang. They tried to bury me in pain, but they forgot I am the seed that grows in the dark. Minh Quang le akthi. I, the wound one, where the pain begins. They told me pain would make me stronger. They were wrong. Pain doesn't make you stronger. It breaks you first. It takes you apart, piece by piece, until you don't even recognize the person in the mirror anymore. And in that moment, you don't see strength, you see ruin. You see the ashes of who you used to be. But that's where it begins. That's where warriors are born. Not in victory, but in defeat. Not in the comfort of safety, but in the chaos of loss. You don't become unbreakable by never falling. You become unbreakable by standing up when everything in you is screaming to stay down. 2, the weight of scars. Some people run from their scars. I learned to wear mine like medals. Every cut, every wound, every burn, they're proof that I fought, that I didn't quit, even when the world said I should. Scars are not signs of weakness. They are signatures of survival. They whisper, I've been through hell, and I came back alive. I remember the nights when I couldn't sleep, when my chest felt heavy with memories I didn't want to keep. The silence was louder than thunder, the pain, sharper than any blade, but I endured it, because some fires don't burn to destroy, they burn to redefine. 3, the fire. Within every storm I've walked through carved something new in me. It stripped away the lies I believed about myself, that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't capable, that I'd never rise again. Pain became the sculptor, shaping me from the inside out. It taught me how to bleed with purpose, how to turn suffering into strength. You see, life doesn't care about fair. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It hits you when you least expect it. When your guard is down, when your heart is open, when your dreams are fragile. And sometimes it hits so hard that it cracks your soul. But that's when the light gets in. Through the cracks, through the pain, through the scars. The awakening. There was a time I thought being strong meant never breaking. Now I know. Being strong means breaking 1,000 times and still choosing to rise again. Every scar is a lesson, every wound a story, and every story ends the same. I'm still here, still standing, still fighting. You can scar me, but you can't stop me. Pain is the forge, and I am the steel that refuses to melt. See, Minh Quang. Li Akti, the fight won, when the world strikes back. The world doesn't always fight fair. Sometimes it crushes you, not because you deserve it, but because it needs to see what you're made of. Life will knock you to your knees, again and again, until you either stay there or rise. And that's the moment that defines you, not when you win, not when people cheer your name, but when no one's watching and you decide to stand again. You rise with trembling hands, blood on your face, and fire in your heart. You rise not because you're fearless, but because you finally accepted that courage only exists through fear. To the battle. Within the hardest fight is never against others. It's against yourself. The voice that says you're not enough. The doubt that chains your dreams. The fear that whispers, what if you fail again? But I've learned something in the ruins. Failure isn't the end. It's the beginning of wisdom. It's the proof that you were brave enough to try. Every time I fell, I found a new version of myself, one more focused, one more alive, one more determined. I stopped chasing perfection. I started chasing progress. Because perfection is sterile. But progress bleeds, sweats, and roars. 3, rise through the storm. The storms don't stop coming, but neither do I. Lightning may strike the same ground twice, but I'll stand there anyway. Arms wide open, eyes unafraid. Because I'm not here to avoid the pain. I'm here to outlast it. You can't scare a soul that's already burned in hell and walked out smiling. You can't stop someone who's made peace with the scars on their skin. The fire tried to consume me. Instead, it became my light. The ashes tried to bury me. Instead, they became my wings. I learned that survival isn't just about breathing. It's about fighting for the breath that costs everything. It's about facing the storm, not with arrogance, but with faith. Faith that even if the world breaks me again, I will rise again, harder, sharper, louder. 4. The moment of defiance. And there comes a moment, a sacred, quiet moment, when you stop running. You stop hiding from the pain. You look it straight in the eye and say, do it. Hit me again. I'm not afraid anymore. That's the moment you become unstoppable. Not because the world stopped hurting you, but because the hurt no longer controls you. You start to see every scar not as a wound, but as a map of your rebirth. You realize that strength isn't about winning battles. It's about never surrendering your soul. I am not what happened to me. I am what I chose to become after it. C. Minh Quang Le, ACT through the rise. 1. From ashes to ascent. Every ending I've faced was just a doorway in disguise. Every collapse, a silent preparation for the rise. Because rising isn't about climbing higher. It's about coming back different. You see, scars don't fade, they evolve. They remind you where you've been, but they also whisper where you're meant to go. I used to see my wounds as reminders of loss. Now I see them as roots of strength, anchors that keep me grounded while I reach for the sky. The ashes beneath my feet are not graves anymore. They are soil, rich with everything I've survived. And from that soil, I rise. Not the same, but reborn. There's a strange silence that comes after pain. Not emptiness, but awareness. You start noticing the way light hits broken glass, the way your breath steadies after a storm. You realize that even shattered things can still reflect the sun. 2. Reclaiming the soul. When you've been broken enough times, something happens inside you. The noise fades. The ego dies. And what remains is truth. Pure, raw, eternal. You stop chasing approval. You stop begging life to be gentle. You start embracing the chaos with open arms. Because you finally understand nothing outside of you has the power to define you. Not failure, not betrayal, not fear. You've been reforged, hammered by pain, cooled by tears, and sharpened by time. You are not the same blade that once trembled in the storm. Now you cut through darkness. You become the light. There's freedom in surrendering to who you truly are. Freedom in admitting, yes, I was hurt. Yes, I bled. But I am still here. Because healing is not about erasing the past. It's about transforming it into armor. Some nights I still hear the echoes of the pain. But now, instead of drowning in them, I listen. They remind me of how far I've come. They remind me of every mountain I've climbed, every storm I've survived, every fire that tried and failed to consume me. 3. The unstoppable. There comes a day when you stop surviving and start living. When your walk carries the weight of 1,000 battles, but your eyes still shine with unbroken hope, you don't fight to prove something anymore. You fight because it's who you are. Because the warrior in you no longer seeks victory. He seeks meaning. You start to see that the greatest power isn't in controlling what happens to you, but in mastering how you respond. Your heart becomes a battlefield of courage and compassion. You learn to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. And you begin to realize every scar, every heartbreak, every fall was sculpting you into something divine. Pain didn't just shape your character, it awakened your soul. So now, when fear knocks, I open the door. When doubt whispers, I smile back. Because I've met them before. And I've beaten them before. You can't threaten a soul that has already found meaning in the fire. You can't break what has already learned to bend. You can't stop what has already risen from its own ashes. Four, the dawn. And now, I stand in the quiet after the storm, no longer afraid of the rain, no longer haunted by the scars. Each breath feels sacred, a reminder that I've survived what was meant to end me. The fire no longer consumes me, it lives within me. I look back not with anger but gratitude, for every scar taught me something the smooth skin never could. It taught me endurance, it taught me patience, it taught me faith, it taught me how to rise again and again and again. There's peace in this stillness. Not because life got easier, but because I got stronger. Not because the storm stopped coming, but because I finally learned how to dance in the rain. When you've walked through fire long enough, you stop fearing the flame. You start carrying it as your light, as your truth, as your legacy. And maybe that's what life has been trying to teach me all along. That pain was never punishment. It was preparation. That scars were never shame. They were signatures of rebirth. That strength was never about never falling. It was about refusing to stay down. 5, the legacy. One day, they'll ask how I kept going when everything around me was falling apart. And I'll tell them, I didn't wait for the world to be kind. I became the kindness I needed. I didn't wait for the fire to stop. I learned to shine through it. Because maybe the purpose of the pain was not to destroy me, but to deliver me to myself. I became my own rescue, my own redemption, my own revolution. And now, I no longer chase the light. I am the light. Every scar, every loss, every broken dream, they weren't the end of my story. They were the reason I found my voice, the reason I became unbreakable. So go ahead, scar me again, test me again. I've stopped fearing the fire because I've become the flame. The infinite rise. 1. Beyond survival. There comes a time when you stop asking, why me? And start whispering, thank you. Because every scar, every heartbreak, every sleepless night was not life's cruelty. It was life's craftsmanship. You were being molded, refined, forged in the fire you begged to escape. You see, pain was never the enemy. It was the teacher. Every wound carried a lesson your comfort never could. And in those lessons, you found your purpose. You learned that strength is not about having no scars. It's about carrying them with grace. You learned that courage is not about never fearing. It's about moving forward even when your hands still tremble. And most of all, you learned that healing is not returning to who you were before. It's becoming someone new, someone wiser, softer, and infinitely stronger. 2. The mirror of fire. Once, I looked into the mirror and saw nothing but scars. Now when I look, I see maps, each line a path that led me here. Every cut a reminder of a lesson learned the hard way. We spend so much of our lives hiding our wounds, covering them, denying them, pretending they don't exist. But the truth is, the world doesn't need our perfection. It needs our authenticity. It needs to see the cracks, because that's where the light gets out, not just in, but out. Your pain, when shared, becomes someone else's hope. Your scars, when revealed, become someone else's permission to heal. Because we're all fighting silent battles behind calm smiles. And sometimes all it takes is one brave soul to say, "Me too." That's how strength spreads. Not through domination, but through connection. Not through power, but through presence. Three, the art of becoming. There's a sacred beauty in becoming. Not in being finished, but in evolving. In allowing every fall, every wound, every heartbreak to carve you into something beautifully imperfect. We live in a world that glorifies power, but underestimates peace. It celebrates winning, but forgets the grace of losing with dignity. Yet I've learned, sometimes falling apart is the most courageous thing you can do. Because it's in those moments when everything you once relied on disappears that you finally discover who you really are when there's nothing left to hold on to. It's in the silence after the scream, the stillness after the storm, the breath you take after the world stops spinning. That's where rebirth begins. I've stopped asking for an easy life. Now I ask for a meaningful one. One where pain refines me, love humbles me, and time reminds me that nothing, not even fear, lasts forever. Because we're not meant to stay the same. We're meant to transform. For the flame that walks. There's a moment, subtle but divine, when you realize you're no longer chasing the light. You are the light. You become the fire that once terrified you. You become the storm you used to run from. And with every step, you leave behind a trail of embers for those still lost in the dark. Your story becomes a torch, your resilience, a hymn, your scars, scripture. And when people look at you, they won't see what broke you. They'll see what built you. They'll see that pain never had the final word. You did. Five, the eternal flame. The truth is, we're all just sparks, trying to survive the wind. Some fade, some flicker, but a few ignite. And once they do, they never go out. Because fire that has known darkness doesn't fear the night anymore. You can scar me, you can burn me, you can tear the flesh and crush the bone, but you'll never touch the flame within. That's the part of me you can't kill. That's the soul that no blade can pierce. Because it doesn't live in the body, it lives in purpose. And purpose is immortal. So, yes, I have been scarred. Yes, I have fallen. But I have also risen, and I will keep rising again and again until my last breath becomes a sunrise for someone else. That's what it means to live beyond the pain. Not just to survive, but to ignite a legacy. They scarred my body, but could never touch my soul. For I am the flame, and flames were never meant to stop. See, Minh Quang.